Lightweave and Rain Underpass project, as well as the Lobby Art project, demonstrating how you can take a lobby and turn it into something that engages with the public. When thinking about art, it's not just decorative, it's really about creating experiences and a sense of place in the neighborhood. Okay, so welcome everybody. We're excited to get started. I do have some questions prepared today, and they're kind of organized. I'm looking for each of your individual perspectives, but I thought that a really good place to begin would actually be where to begin. So working with a client, whether they be a tenant for their new office or a developer, of a repositioned building, I want to ask Stacy. Stacy, what's the right time to bring on a consultant? And what does that process look like?
So I would say that it doesn't matter whether this is a lobby, a multifamily project, or an individual office. The time to have that conversation is as soon as possible and early in the process. Once you have your plans from your architect and you hopefully have set your furniture, the conversation should hopefully begin early on in the process. And there's many reasons why you want to do that. One of them is if there's branding involved, you want to start that conversation with either the tenant or the developer of the project. Also, developing a realistic budget for your project. Most people have no idea what art costs, and every medium is different. And we are able to, as consultants, advise our clients as to what things cost. The other advantage to starting this conversation early on is if there are special needs that need to be incorporated into a building, into the art program, we like to have that conversation earlier than later. It affects the lighting, it can affect blocking in the walls. So basically, the conversation can't be too soon for somebody like myself.
And I think as far as budget's concerned, I don't think there's a wrong answer. It's just that it needs to be considered from the very beginning.
Right.
Right.
So generally, when clients want to have a conversation with us about budget, we're educators. We have to tell people what art costs. And I don't have any expectations of my clients to know what art costs. I mean, for many of our clients, this is the first time doing something like this. And they're very excited about the process, but it's my job to explain to them, well, this artist can cost A and this artist can cost B, because there is a big difference in mediums.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay, so thinking about that and working with a consultant, Ryan, you're currently working with a consultant for your Eckington project. What have you learned throughout that process that could be valuable to share from the developer perspective?
Sure. I think that we've learned exactly what Stacy said about just planning early. The earlier you plan, the more you can get out of the art and the more the art can be showcased as a true feature of the building to enhance the community. And what I mean by that is the longer lead times you have more flexibility to commission pieces, to properly work with the interior designers to make sure that the art is complementing the interior design and the interior design is complementing the art. You of course also have the ability to bring in, lighting consultants, other consultants, to really make sure that you are featuring the art in the best way possible. So that's definitely what I would say is the sooner the better. And it's really great to have a consultant to help along the way with thinking of all these pieces to the puzzle. And, there are a lot of factors, but the earlier you get on it, the better served you'll be.
That's great. That's great. Okay. And thinking about, some of those puzzle pieces, and telling a story as it relates to the interiors and the building. If there is commission work, Stacy, how do you commission work and set expectation with clients so it remains fair and advantageous to the artists?
It is a great question, Sarah. We usually start the commission process by asking what the vision and mission is for each individual client and what they want to see in their space. Art is the first thing you see when you walk into an office or a lobby or even outside artwork. And it's the last thing you see when you're leaving it. And it should say something about who you are. It should say something about your place. So when we start the commission process, we generally sit down as a team and we discuss together, what do we want to show the client? And we are as transparent as we possibly can be in this process. And we have to be very realistic with the budget as well. The budget for commissioning pieces is usually what drives the project. And also, we need to set a realistic time frame for both the artist as well as for the client. If the client's having a public opening, obviously there are artists that can do work in 6 weeks and there are artists that take 6 months. So we can't ever propose something that's unrealistic for an artist as well. We also have to have open conversations with artists. We try to render into the drawings as much as we can what the art is going to look like so that the client knows beforehand and there's no big surprises. That being said, there's also some artistic license that you need to give to an artist when you're commissioning a piece. But I think the most important part of the commission process is to be able to listen to what your client wants and for them to be realistic about what the artist can bring on board and what you can attain by commissioning. Because the commission process is very personal and very special and clients tend to get very excited about it. So I think transparency, budget, and being realistic with the artist about what expectations there are.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's great. You know, to backtrack a little bit, you did start talking about lobbies and thinking about lobbies. And I think that, you know, from a branding perspective, or, you know, when a building's being repositioned and there's a new building, you know, we're looking for differentiators, thinking about what that experience is going to be when somebody arrives at the building. But it's not always just for people that are in the building, you know, to have those experiences. We think about lobbies and we think about the streetscape and people that are passing by. So I think that this is a great place to tap into some other trends that we've been seeing in the convergence of public and private art, because it's where it gets really interesting. You know, NOMA is a great example, as there seems to be art everywhere you go. So this question is for Rob and Eve. One of the projects that you shared with us that's a great example of this convergence is the Lobby Art Project. Can you tell us more about where that idea came from, how it works, and how it's been received?
Sorry, I had the unmute issue. So thanks for the question, Sarah. I will love to give credit to somebody else other than myself. So Harriet Tregoning, who used to be the head of the DC Office of Planning, was a co-conspirator in the Lobby Art Project. You know, Harriet, one of her pet peeves in New York, in DC, is one that I shared, which is we have all these gorgeous but incredibly sterile lobbies that have some seating in them, but nobody's really invited to be in them. And, you know, so reflecting on experiences in New York and other cities, Harriet looked at what are the ways to activate lobbies and asked for partners in that. And we were excited to be a partner. So we decided that the way to activate our lobby was to welcome people into it by putting a lot of comfortable furniture in it. But the real feature of the lobby is a nearly 40-foot long art wall. And we have used over the last, I guess it's almost 5 years now, that art wall for a series of rotating art exhibits. We've had 2 different curators to help manage that process. And it's been very popular. Because this is a real estate community, I think people appreciate the anecdote a little bit about how we got it started. When we worked with the building owner, which is a mutual, the investment arm of a mutual fund, we said, well, gee, we're going to do this. We think it's going to be great. Of course, nobody's done it before. And by the way, you're inviting the general public to hang out in your lobby all day long. And it's happened in New York, and it happens in San Francisco and other places. So we think it'll be good, but their level of comfort was very small, but they were willing to take the risk. And so our first license agreement with them had a 30-day kick out. So, like if this didn't work, we had to be completely out, taken down, done in 30 days. 5 years later, it's an ongoing project. It's been a huge success. And actually the building owner credits that in part with the fact that the building has maintained almost full occupancy since that time. So it is an interior piece, but it interacts with the exterior as well. And I think that the value of those kinds of art pieces help to place people's developments, people's properties psychographically in the public mind, really. And so we've had, as you mentioned, Powwow DC, which is going on for its 5th year right now. I mean, has really come to characterize NOMA, and people have called NOMA the mural capital of DC. That helps to place NOMA, but individual murals place buildings, and so it really has a lot of value from the real estate perspective.
I'll unmute myself, thinking about value. Stacy or Ryan, do you have anything to add here about the value of private art that's in the public eye?
I love walking around NOMA and Union Market and that whole area. It makes me happy, and it allows me to interact with what would have been a flat building with no personality to something that is, as Robin Eve said, an experience. I mean, art speaks to who you are and what you do, but it also has the power to transform. And I think big kudos to NOMA BID for transforming that entire neighborhood for people to come in and have that experience.
Thank you. Thanks, Stacy.
I really love the idea of joy. Who would have thought that an office building could bring you joy? And I think that we all need a little joy every day now. So yeah, I think that's great. Okay, Bobby Art Project. Okay, it's just one of the many art projects that has been undertaken in the NOMA BID, and as part of the neighborhood's transformation, over the past decade or so. How have these valuable projects, we talked about it a little bit, but how valuable have they been to the BID, in the city?
Yeah, so I think, as you said, it's the experience piece, right? Mm-hmm. Suddenly people feel bonded. They experience a place in a way that's emotional, right? And, I think there's, it's impossible to value at the art piece level, but it's easy to value at the neighborhood level. I mean, NOMA's contributed well over $1 billion of fiscal revenue to the city over the last maybe 14 years or so. If there was nothing, if there was no character identity neighborhood, I think we would have seen a much smaller effect. I think the other thing it's contributed, just like the, kind of going back to powwow, one of the things we've been able to do, because we are not a single brand, is enable our artists to really express their authentic vision. And so installations like the Underpass art installations, which both improve the connectivity east-west in the neighborhood, that was their original intent, to make unappealing spaces appealing, but also, through an international competition, enabled people to kind of express a big vision and then put it out in public space. So that's really been terrific to see how that works. And also to have a group of people involved who understand that public art can be controversial and are ready for that controversy and kind of accept it. And the kind of full range of stuff that's happened in NOMA allows people to find their own personal identities in different pieces that are there. So it's been exciting to be part of.
Yep, and I think that it brings brand equity, but at a a larger scale for the city. What questions should bids or developers ask themselves before taking on these types of projects based on what you've learned?
Well, I would say the first is that it has to feel relevant to the community at this scale, right? So that's one thing, and to be prepared for it to be controversial. It was Betsy Braun who sat on our selection committee for the Underpass art projects who said, just be prepared. It's going to be controversial. The other things that we've had to deal with that I think, have been discussed a little bit is, okay, so where's the electricity coming from? How big does the foundation for the piece need to be physically? If it's for example, a piece of sculpture, who are you working with as your consultant or for curation purposes? Fabrication of large pieces, or for giant murals, whose property do you need to be on to get that done? And what kind of lift systems do you need? Obviously, insurance is a big thing. And then the other thing that I would say for pieces in public space, whether they're on private property or public property, is long-term maintenance. So that really needs to be a commitment of whoever the owner is to making sure that the piece is maintained properly and remains something that people want to engage with.
I think all of those notes are great, in thinking about on a grand scale, but then also, for a neighborhood, but then also for a building. Ryan, have you seen the same sort of?
Yeah, I think that Rob and Eve makes a great point about the authenticity and the audience, right? And so part of it is knowing who your audience is and what are you trying to display that will speak to and resonate to that audience. And so a lot of that goes into just knowing who those viewers are going to be and what they're really interested in and what will touch them and move them. And I think the point about having art on public or private property is a great point. At Grosvenor Americas, we definitely like to have art in all of our projects. Sometimes that is whether it be a mural at our project at First, where we have a large mural up on the rooftop, or whether that be something that's more public facing. At our project in Silver Spring, we actually have a 30-foot stainless steel sculpture that's in a public paseo that's enjoyed by many people throughout the day. And each location, each type of art, you just really have to think about the audience and making sure that you maintain it and that it remains vibrant and contributing to that community.
Yeah, I love that you brought it First, because First was a really interesting an interesting mural project in that I believe, I might make this up and I don't want our director of lifestyle to have to correct me, but that, you know, that you engaged with artists and then you actually had the residents help to participate
Yeah.
to paint the mural on the rooftop. So it was like a real means of community engagement, which is pretty nice. We've actually done that on a project in Richmond as well, like just for a commercial for what was it, an association. So I mean, I think that it's a great way to be able to get people involved, and also, you know, kind of as a differentiator. This kind of brings us into the storytelling and branding component. You know, thinking about, you know, in commercial real estate, we're all looking for differentiators, and, you know, working with artists to create a unique experience, it's a great route to be able to take with the proper budget considerations that we've discussed. And from a creative perspective, art can be used as a means of storytelling. From a creative perspective, can you talk, because the Eckington project is kind of interesting, and can you talk about how you embraced art as a differentiator?
Yes.
Okay.
Certainly, happy to. So our project at Eckington is actually, it's 45 condominium homes, and there's 2-story homes. So there's actually only 3 corridors, very long corridors of the building. And we don't have a ton of amenity spaces, but we wanted to do something really special and unique in this community. So we created this concept of what we call like a gallery walk corridor, where we're going to be showcasing large format art pieces by local artists in each of these different corridors that really are enhanced by very strategic place lighting and other things that we've done to make it almost feel like an art gallery experience when you're entering your residence. So we think it really will just be a great feature for our residents there, and we're really excited about it.
That sounds really cool. To follow up a question on that, just because, you know, we have talked a little bit about Grosvenor as well, but do you feel as though the decisions for artwork for each of the projects, are they more reflective of the Grosvenor brand or for the identity of like each individual project? So are they more building specific?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think they are more building specific, really, because although they have some fluidity to our brand and connectivity, they really have to elevate and coordinate with that building. And each building has its own personality, you know, that the interior design, interior and exterior speak to. And then, of course, we want the art to complement that and to work and paradigm with it. So I would say we mainly really focus on making sure the art aligns with our building vision.
Mm-hmm. And that, you know, a great way to be able to do that is if you do have the luxury of being able to have work commissioned. I want to pivot back to corporate clients now and think about, you know, ask Stacy kind of through her experience, when you have been working with clients on commission work, what are the steps that you take to be able to get there?
Again, I'm going to go back to budget, because the budget kind of drives the entire commission process. Once the budget is established, though, and both the artist and the client understand what the vision is, we basically start by presenting a variety of different artists to our clients, and they decide what suits them best in terms of the commission process. Usually there's 3 or 4 different options, and we come up with those options.
Do you think that the first step is sort of selecting a style that appeals to them, that also coordinates with the interiors of the space? I'm kind of thinking about NAB, so National Association of Broadcasters, has sort of this mid-century modern furniture component. And then they knew that they wanted to have these posters, in this poster style, and you worked together with Michael Crossett to be able to design a few pieces.
Right. So, and fortunately for us with NAB, Hickok Cole brought us in very early on the process, which we greatly appreciated. The conversation was had with the client, Hickok Cole, and Art Matters, and those are incredibly valuable conversations. So you are looking at what the furniture looks like, you are establishing what the branding is going to be, which Hickok Cole did an excellent job doing as well. And then there's our component. And what do you want this to look like? What do you want it to say? And how can you, our goal is always to enhance the design features of a space. So we look at what you used in terms of the finishes. We looked at the size of the walls. We look at what's on the walls. And then we make recommendations based on the space and what that looked like. And there were a lot of, there were a lot of meetings to discuss what it was that NAB wanted to see on their walls. And ultimately, I think we got it just right. They were thrilled with it, and we were thrilled with the process.
Yeah, I think that it was, it had a great storytelling component that, and oftentimes this is what we see, that, you work with clients and they want to be able to somehow be able to tell their story, their history. Maybe it's about their neighborhood and, so, and how to incorporate that. There's all of these pieces that are able to come together to be able to do something that's truly unique. So I think that's.
And Hickok Cole did a lot of the branding for us. I mean, you really captured for us the history of NAB as well as the mission and the vision of the client. It was really our goal to enhance that and to take your designs and to bring that to light by having original art. I mean, all the work for NAB was commissioned.
That it's nice to be able to do that. Right. Okay, I think this is great. We're about halfway through. It's about 4:30. I'm going to do a closing question, and then I think in a little bit we're going to pivot, and if we have any questions in our Q&A, we can discuss those. So here we go. It's clear that art is becoming more and more important to the success of projects. As we look to the future of our collaborations with the artist community, what would you like to see more of? I'm gonna ask Rob and Eve this first.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry.
Oh my God. So I think.
What's good and what do you want to see more of?
Well, I mean, I liked what Ryan mentioned about the idea of co-creation. We did with the community. We did a project like that with Mazi Mustafa years back, where the community did a 15,000 square foot mural at the development that's now Noma Center. So, and people loved that, and it created a great sense of place. But so that kind of collaboration with the community, I'd like to see more of. I'd like to see art everywhere. I'd like to see property owners understand the value of art in public space as well as in their private space and what it means to their investments. And then I'm personally would love to see more art that we can play on. So I grew up in Manhattan and spent a lot of time in Central Park as a little kid. And George Delacourt's gift of the Alice in Wonderland sculpture to that place, that was, is both a fabulous sculpture, but something that generations of children have played on. I want to see more art that we can play on.
As a mom of two boys, I love the idea of art that you can play on. That's great. Okay, Ryan, from the development perspective, what would you like to see?
Sure. I think Rob and Eve makes a lot of great points. I think having art more accessible, right? Having it in more places, different types of art, different mediums of art, whether it be sculpture, whether it be, light projections, whether any different types of more tactile art that you engage with more, I think is a great point. And yeah, I mean, I think all of that will build awareness and more interest in the art community as people are experiencing it more, right? And seeing it more frequently and engaging with it more. So that's what I'd like to see.
Stacy?
I want to see more art. I mean, to be very honest, I I feel like sometimes I'm fighting for the conversation about what is going in your space, what is going on your walls, because many times I feel like it's an afterthought, and I really am striving for this to be the beginning of the question at the beginning of the process, as opposed to, 6 weeks before an office is opening and the president is coming and somebody poses the question, but there's nothing on our walls. So for me, I would like to see art incorporated at the beginning of a process. I'd like to work with designers and architects from the beginning of their plans and share with them our vision about what the space can be. Because people have aha moments after the art is installed. They really do. They come in and they say, I never thought that it could look like this. And that goes for public art as well as private art. It does make a difference. And so in the future, I'd like to, and I will say something else about just our current environment. I think people need to return to work and return to the workplace being engaged. And I think art will make a big difference, that building owners as well as business owners need to think about that art could change that. Art can engage your employees, as well as hopefully one day we'll all get back to visiting each other. But I do think it would make a big difference if we started to think about it sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, us talking about experiences, that, when we do get to go back to work, that experience should be, I'll circle back, one of joy. And I think that, art can have a lot to do with that. Absolutely. So thinking about coming back to the workplace, okay, these are the Q&As. I'm getting them typed in for me over here. So this is great. So we just talked about coming back to the workplace. And one of the most important trends we're seeing in the industry right now across both commercial and residential spaces is wellness and well-being. Can art have an impact on wellness?
I have seen that firsthand. I mean, I've worked in healthcare settings. Several years ago, we did Sibley Hospital, and I think one of the moments I cherished the most about that project is when the doctors and nurses started getting the tour of the new tower at Sibley Hospital, and were walking through and thanked us for putting the art on the walls. And they said to us that it would make such a big difference once the patients started being moved in. We installed this project over a series of weeks, and we started to see that firsthand with the patients, how they were responding to the artwork and what a difference it made in their cancer therapies, as well as the visitor experience. So I do think that wellness, whether it's in the workplace or in a healthcare setting, is very important to think about by engaging who's walking in your door, as well as the people who are working in the space. I think it is very important for your employees to be able to interact with artwork. I mean, sometimes we laugh because clients will send us selfie moments that they'll do, take pictures of their artwork that we've just installed, and they post it on Instagram, and they'll say, this is the selfie piece of our office. Well, that's also a feel-good moment for everybody involved. If you're taking a picture in front of a piece of artwork, then you're feeling pretty good about your workplace and coming to work every day.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you said selfie moments, Instagrammable moments, something like that. Why don't we?
Here, I have one about
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay, do it.
Well, one of the things we did recently is we started a Wear a Mask campaign in NOMA, and we engaged 4 artists to do posters about wear a mask. And
Saw those. That was awesome. Okay, sorry.
And it's had a huge impact. I mean, we printed actually 600 of them. So it's had a couple of impacts. One is I think it really has increased mask wearing in the neighborhood. So that's the wellness impact. The other thing is we gave them to retailers to get people back into the retailers' spaces. And so, you know, they had to go to a restaurant or wherever to get their suite of 4 wear a mask posters. The 600 disappeared right away. We've actually ordered a whole new group of them. And people have said it's just led to a boatload of door swings. So wellness and better outcomes for retailers during the coronavirus. So anyway.
Yeah. No, that's great. Let's see here. I want to look at one of these audiences ones. Okay, I have one from the audience. As an artist, what are the best ways to get one's art in front of consultants and developers? Ryan, you want to field this one first?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I think working with consultants can be really helpful to understand what your art, if you're just starting out, right, you've got to start somewhere. So you first have to get people to understand what your art is and what it's about and really understand what's behind it. So I think, you know, the first step is getting out there and getting eyes on it. But, you know, I think it takes a pathway, which sometimes can be helped along the way with an art consultant who can speak on your behalf, who can approach developers, who probably has multiple developers they've worked with in the past, and can maybe help fast track that process a little bit. But that's kind of what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Stacy.
We have a submission page on our website that we ask artists to go through and submit their website to us. One of the things that I always say to artists is to keep in mind who you're submitting to. I don't do residential work, so all of my clients are corporate clients.
Mm-hmm.
The artwork should be appropriate for a corporate client. So quite often I get very residential looking artwork showing up in my emails. And although I love it and it's very attractive work, it has to be appropriate for my clients. But we do regularly look at all of the submissions. I encourage all artists to look at all the art consultants that are in the area, because there are several and they're all excellent. And I am always looking for new artists. I will say that out loud. I'm always looking for somebody to make a referral to me that I can use in my projects. It's how we stay fresh. It's how we want to introduce new work into our projects as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think going through consultants is an excellent venue for
Mm-hmm.
artists.
Do you find that art searches are generally local?
I would say both. I get artists from across the United States reaching out to me. I get artists from Europe reaching out to me. The majority of artists that I get through our website are primarily local.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. I have a question here. Can we share more examples of art as branding?
I have one.
Okay.
We have a Gateways project, which is so a plan. It's a plan that we're underway with to identify kind of important spots in NOMA that feel maybe a little fringy now, but really need to be enlivened. And so our first one was the Chicken and the Egg, which is at North Capitol and New York Avenue and N Street. It's a little National Park Service reservation there. And so it relates to kind of the history of the neighborhood, and there's a little plaque on it that describes kind of the former identity as a wholesale food market and transportation hub, but it also incorporates the branding colors of the NOMA bid, the kind of CMYK brand. And so it kind of bridges that art/branding. Just a thought.
Yeah, but it also has a little bit of a thread to tie things together while still being totally unique.
Yes, and it doesn't say NOMA in big letters. So, not that that would be bad, but it's not simply a brand piece.
Yeah. Oh, where can we see samples of the mask wearing poster campaign?
Oh my goodness. My guess is our website probably. And while you guys are talking, I'll Google it to see where the best.
Okay. I feel like I saw it on social media at some point.
Yeah,
so.
it's definitely in social media, maybe hashtag wear a mask on Twitter, but I'll Google and post it.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Okay. This one. What's the difference between art as installation, which is integral to the architecture, versus art as object that's placed in the space relative to branding and commercial real estate?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
Stacy, there's Stacy, question mark.
Yeah. So can you just say the
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. What's the difference between art as installation, which is integral to the architecture, so installed as part of the architecture, versus art as object that's placed in the space, relative to the branding and commercial real estate? Maybe it's about longevity of the art in the space.
Yeah, I mean,
What do you think,
it
Brian?
may even, I'm not sure, it might be getting at like more the design of the building as art, which it kind of can be. I mean, you know, architecture is to some extent a definitely creative field too, where you'll see, you know, a pedestrian bridge, or you'll see a piece of a building, you're experiencing a mezzanine level that has some unique filigree detail or has something that feels almost artistic to it. That's actually a piece of the building. And so maybe it's getting at that a little bit, where I definitely think that, you know, a lot of times developers can kind of have a certain design that you'll know it's that developer, right? There's certain kind of pieces of that puzzle that are very near and dear to that developer's heart. So you can see that across their buildings, for example. I think maybe that's what it's getting at a little bit, in as far as how that connection can work. That's how I'm taking the question. I could have taken it completely wrong, but that's how I'm understanding it.
Okay, we have a little bit of a follow-up here from Brent Perkins, and he says, to clarify, the installation, it's a chandelier that can be a piece of art, like such as Yellow Goat, right? Or the work by Gutierrez Studio, or a handrail that can be a work of art rather than a painting on a wall. So it's built into the space. Yep, that's great. Oh, okay, here we have NOMA bids. Free wear mask posters are available at more than 12 small businesses in NOMA. Full list at NOMA bid/reopen, which brings up a good point, because we've had a couple questions about people asking for visuals or links to visuals since we're talking about art, you know, but since we're not all panel pros here, I didn't, you know, we didn't think we might have time for that, but we can certainly follow up with a list of links for some of the projects that we've talked about today. I think that's a great idea. Okay, here we go. How long should people expect for a work of art to remain in a building? What is the longevity of the investment? Does it depend on the space?
I give it a shot. Because I'm not the developer here side, but or the interior side, but my former boss, Sam Rose, who's a big local collector, you know, he was very passionate about having art in every building that he built. And I don't think hardly any of it's ever been switched out. And I think it really depends on the quality of the piece. I mean, and the politics of the time, right? So we're in a time where things that people considered art are now objectionable for a variety of reasons, because they convey inappropriate messages, unwelcome messages about social justice and racism and topics. So I think over time, writ large, some pieces will age better than other pieces. But I do think that, kind of, it's about how you interpret your space. Is it a rotating bit, or and are you trying to create new excitement rather than is the art, do you need to change it because it's been 3 years and now I need to change the art. Some places have art that's so compelling that if you took them out, people would be just, really sad to see them go. So depends on the piece.
Start to form a connection. Okay, this one is interesting. Okay, on a personal level, okay, as individuals, did you guys see this one? As individuals who are passionate about art, what is the most prized piece of art you showcase in your own homes? Yeah, what's the most prized piece of art that you have that or most cherished or something? I want each of you to answer. I might answer too. We'll see.
So I'll start because you can see it in the background of the video. I collect teapots. And I'm very, very passionate about collecting teapots. I'm not quite sure how all of this started. It was probably while I was working at VisArts, which is a local arts community in Montgomery County. We did a show called The Art of Tea. And I ended up buying like half the teapots in the show. But they have to be weird as my children will say, they have to be really weird teapots. They have to be handmade, and they just have to speak to me on a very unusual level of being creative, as well as I think seeing what the artist hoped would excite somebody when they were grabbing some tea for themselves. So that's personally what I like looking at in my own home.
Yeah. What do you think? You want to go?
Sure, I'll go.
Okay.
So we have a couple of pieces, still life pieces by an artist who did a lot of the portraits historically for, did a lot of White House portraits actually, and have at least one piece of his that's a rural landscape in Middleburg, Virginia, and it's Herb Abrams, the local. Robin Eve knows. So
No, Bill Middleburg.
yeah. Oh, okay. So I just have one of those pieces that's of the countryside. That's just a beautiful, beautiful piece.
Robin Eve.
I'm going to do it's like asking you which of your children you love the most, right? I don't know that I can really say. Although I do have a truly special fondness for Black Rooster painting that we bought on the side of the road on a trip from Vermont back to Washington. And it's on a bright green background on a piece of plywood that's warping. And the painter lived in an abandoned railroad stop and painted there. And when we went in to see his work, which we saw some of it on the side of the road, he brought us through his bedroom, and the water was pouring in spots in the bedroom, and he was working in what he had set up as a little studio in the back room. But the piece is amazing. I'm sorry I don't have a picture of it that I can show you guys, but it is literally like, if I have to have a favorite child, that might be it.
That's great. That's great. Well, we can follow up with images if all of you want to take snapshots of some of these pieces. I think what's amazing to hear from all of you is just that, and we need to remember that art, provides this emotional connection, and it's a link to it's even a link to a place and time. I mean, you can totally remember when you got this. And I think that being able to layer story and emotional connection is just something that we need to try to do, for it, I guess, on a daily basis, right? I mean, mine is exactly the same. My grandmother, I have a painting. She was a painter and lived in Provincetown at the tip of Cape Cod. But one painting in particular is one of the street. So when we're there and we're looking down to Captain Jack's and onto the beach, it is exactly it. And it's just so wonderful to look at every day, because there's no place I'd rather be, honestly. So I think that's just, I think it's wonderful. And thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. So I think that we're closing in. Oh, I'm getting a P-Town shout out. Sorry. Okay. I'm not trying to. I want to thank each and every one of you, Stacy, Ryan, Rob, and Eve. Thank you for joining us for our first panel for Art Month 2020. This year is definitely different. We're excited to be having these conversations and encourage you to join us for the next 2 installments in this series. We have Buying Art Demystified, how to start your own collection, and then we have Art in Progress. Again, these are on our LinkedIn, and I'm sure if you guys are getting our emails, there'll be a follow-up. As important as these conversations are, the most important part of Art Month is the opportunity to buy art in support of local artists and Washington Project for the Arts. Our virtual gallery is hosted this year on Big Cartel, and it's going to open next Thursday, October 15th. We're going to drop a link into the chat. And I'm getting a yes, do it now. Yeah, so that is it. Everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you for having
Appreciate
me.
your time today.
It's really a pleasure.
Thank you.
And thank you to
Yeah.
Hip Hop Cole for doing Art Night every year, because I just want to give a shout out to everybody in your group. You do an amazing job. You elevate the art scene totally. This has become the real estate event in the industry to go to. And you do a fantastic job of showcasing the amazing talent in this city. And I just had to get that in before we ended this conversation, because there's just some incredible artists here, and they just deserve to have their art on the walls. And you do that every single year, and you do a great job of it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that I'll just personally say that, I think we're all a little bummed that, we're bummed about a lot of things, but Art Night is definitely one of the highlights, for me and for our company every year. And I'm so excited that we found a way, Mike and Yolanda found a way, that our marketing department found a way to work together with WPA and all of the curators that are on the project this year to find a way to make it happen. And especially that it is our 20th anniversary, and that hopefully, this is a great kickoff. It's all month long, but we've got lots of stuff happening. So I can't think of a better year to do something for a month than right now, because we don't have anywhere to go anyway, right? So again, thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Bye.